My parents insisted that locking my 9-year-old son inside an unheated tool shed during a tornado warning was discipline. They said I was overreacting. They said children needed fear to become strong. But when my father stood before a judge 3 weeks later and declared, "I did the same thing to Claire, and she became a successful woman," I finally told the court what had really happened to me when I was 10. Until that moment, not even my attorney knew. My name is Claire Bennett. I am 37 years old, and for 15 years I worked as a flight paramedic in northern Texas. I have treated people after car crashes, industrial accidents, floods, fires, and storms powerful enough to tear roofs from houses. I know what cold exposure does to a child. I know what panic does to breathing. And I know how little time it takes for an ordinary punishment to become a tragedy. That was why, when my former school teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, called me at 10:52 on a Friday night and said, "Claire, I have Noah with me," I was already reaching for my keys. Then I heard my son behind her. He wasn't crying. He was breathing too quickly, forcing each breath through clenched teeth as though making noise might get him punished again. "Is he hurt?" I asked. "I don't think so," Mrs. Alvarez replied. "But he's soaking wet, freezing, and terrified." "You need to come now." I was 80 miles away in Tulsa, attending the final day of an emergency management certification course. A tornado watch had been issued that afternoon, but the worst of the weather wasn't supposed to reach Bellwether County until after midnight. The forecast had been wrong. My parents lived outside the small town of Red Hollow, Oklahoma, on 12 acres of pasture and pecan trees. Noah was spending the weekend with them while I attended the course. He had stayed there many times before, and for nearly a year, while I recovered from a helicopter crash, my parents had served as his temporary legal guardians. That detail would soon become more important than the storm itself. I left the hotel without checking out. Rain hammered the windshield before I reached the interstate. Lightning spread across the clouds in long white veins, and warning alerts kept vibrating through my phone. I called my parents. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then I called Mrs. Alvarez. "Tell me exactly what happened." "I heard pounding on my back door," she said. When I opened it, Noah was standing there barefoot. He ran through the drainage field from your parents' property. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "Why was he outside?" "He says your father locked him in the tool shed." For a moment, I could hear only the rain and the tires cutting through water. "How long?" "He doesn't know. Maybe 45 minutes. Maybe longer." I spent the rest of that drive in the particular kind of calm medical workers use when panic would only waste time. I checked the route to the nearest emergency clinic. I called ahead. I asked Mrs. Alvarez to remove Noah's wet clothes, wrap him in dry blankets, and keep him awake. But beneath those practical instructions, one question kept repeating in my mind. Why hadn't my parents called me? They had my number. They knew the weather was dangerous. They knew their grandson was outside. Yet they had not made a single attempt to contact me. When I reached Mrs. Alvarez's house shortly after midnight, the tornado sirens were wailing. Noah was sitting on her couch beneath 3 blankets. He wore an oversized sweatshirt belonging to her late husband and thick wool socks that reached his knees. His dark hair was still damp, and scratches marked both his ankles. The instant he saw me, his face changed. "Mom." He ran into my arms so hard that my shoulder struck the doorway. "I'm here," I whispered. "You're safe." His whole body began shaking. Mrs. Alvarez looked away, giving us privacy, but I saw her wipe her eyes. I checked Noah's pulse, breathing, pupils, hands, and feet. His skin was cold and pale, but his color was returning. He had no serious injuries, only shallow cuts from crossing the field. "What happened?" I asked when he could speak. His answer came in broken pieces. My father, Grant Bennett, had told Noah to clean the mud from his shoes before entering the house. Noah had done it, but not well enough. My father made him repeat the task. When Noah became frustrated and talked back, my father took him by the arm, marched him to the detached tool shed, pushed him inside, and secured the door from outside. "He said I could come back when I learned respect," Noah whispered. "What did Grandma do?" "She was watching from the kitchen. Did she tell him to let you out?" Noah shook his head. The electricity failed shortly afterward. The shed had no windows except for a narrow gap near the roof. Wind drove rain beneath the door. Something heavy struck the metal wall, and Noah began screaming. No one came. Eventually, a tree branch tore through part of the shed roof. Rain poured inside, and the impact loosened a damaged panel near the rear wall. Noah kicked at it until he made enough room to crawl through. Then he ran. He crossed a pasture, climbed through a broken section of fence, and followed the light above Mrs. Alvarez's back door. "I remembered what you told me," he said. "What did I tell you? If I ever felt unsafe, I should find a trusted adult and go toward a light." Those words nearly broke me. A 9-year-old should remember his mother's advice while crossing a storm-darkened field. He should never have needed to use it. I left him with Mrs. Alvarez and walked to my parents' house. The worst of the storm had moved east, but rain still fell heavily. My boots sank into the pasture, and pieces of branches lay scattered across the ground. The tool shed stood 50 yards behind the house. One section of its roof had collapsed. A sheet of metal hung at an angle, moving in the wind. Beside the entrance, I found one of Noah's sneakers. The other was half buried in mud near the fence. The back door of my parents' house was locked. I knocked until my mother opened it. Linda Bennett was wearing a robe, but her hair was neatly tied, as though she had been awake the entire time. "Where is he?" she asked. "At Mrs. Alvarez's." She released a breath, not relief that Noah was safe, relief that he had been found before anyone else became involved. My father appeared behind her, fully dressed, holding a mug of coffee. "You drove all this way for nothing," he said. "The boy is fine." I stared at him. "You locked him in a shed during a tornado warning." "I put him somewhere quiet until he controlled himself." The roof collapsed. Part of it came loose. Don't exaggerate. He ran barefoot through a field. He chose to run. Nobody told him to. My mother stepped between us. "Claire, everyone is upset. We should talk tomorrow." "No, we are talking now." My father set his coffee on the counter. "Noah has become disrespectful since you came back," he said. "He argues. He cries whenever he doesn't get his way. You protect him from every uncomfortable feeling, and you're turning him weak. He is 9. At 9, I was doing farm work before sunrise. You locked him outside while tornado sirens were sounding." My father's expression remained calm. It was that calmness, not anger, not shame, that frightened me most. "You survived worse," he said. A strange image flashed through my mind: a grain cellar, a rusted ladder, dust floating through a narrow stripe of light. I pushed the memory away. My father continued. "I raised you with discipline. You became a flight paramedic. You saved lives. You think soft treatment made you capable of that? This is not about me. It is exactly about you. I know what makes children strong because I made you strong." My mother touched my arm. "Please don't turn one mistake into a family war." "One mistake?" "Your father misjudged the weather. He secured the door from outside. He would have released Noah when he apologized. The shed was damaged before that could happen." My father gave a dismissive laugh. "A storm scared him. Fear won't kill him." "No," I said, "but a falling roof could have." He folded his arms. "You're being dramatic. This kind of discipline never hurt you." The image returned, the cellar door closing. My father's hand on the latch, my own voice begging him not to leave. Then it disappeared again beneath years of carefully constructed silence. I went to the guest room, packed Noah's belongings, and returned to the kitchen. "He will never stay here again." My father shrugged. "That decision isn't entirely yours." I stopped. My mother looked down. That was when I remembered the guardianship order, 11 months earlier. The medical helicopter I worked aboard had made a hard landing during a severe crosswind. I survived with a fractured shoulder, 2 broken ribs, and a spinal injury that required surgery and months of rehabilitation. Noah's father had died when Noah was 4. With no other parent available, I signed temporary guardianship over to my parents while I recovered. I had returned home 4 months earlier and filed to terminate the arrangement. My attorney told me the hearing was routine, but the county docket was delayed. Until a judge signed the termination order, my parents remained Noah's legal guardians. My father knew it. "You signed him into our care," he said. "You don't get to rewrite that because you're angry." I stepped closer. "If you attempt to take him, I will tell everyone what happened tonight." "Tell them," he replied. "They'll hear about a boy throwing a tantrum and a grandfather trying to correct him." My mother followed me outside. "Claire, please," she whispered. "Let us solve this privately. Why didn't you call me?" She pulled her robe closed against the wind. "We didn't want to interrupt your course. Your grandson was locked in a damaged shed during a storm. Your father thought he was safe. You saw Noah outside." She said nothing. I looked at the house where I had spent my childhood and understood that my mother's silence had never been helplessness. It was participation conducted quietly. I took Noah to an urgent care center that opened at 6. The physician documented cold exposure, superficial cuts, bruising around his upper arm, and acute emotional distress. Noah explained everything to the nurse with the blunt honesty of a child who had not yet learned how adults hide one another's cruelty. "Grandpa said I had to stay until I stopped being scared," he said. The nurse paused. "Did anyone check on you?" "No." "Did you call for help?" I screamed, but the storm was too loud. The physician was legally required to report suspected child neglect. I knew she would make the call. Still, I asked to use an empty consultation room, found the number for Bellwether County Child Protective Services, and reported my parents myself. Speaking their names was harder than I expected. Grant Bennett, Linda Bennett. I provided their address and described the shed, the damaged roof, the storm warning, and Noah's condition. When the intake officer gave me a case number, I wrote it on the back of the clinic receipt. Then I sat alone in my car and cried so violently that I could not start the engine. People imagine reporting a relative feels brave. It does not. It feels like tearing your childhood home in half with your own hands. 2 days later, my mother came to my house carrying chicken soup. Food was her favorite substitute for accountability. "You need to withdraw the complaint," she said. "No." A county investigator came to the property. "Your father is humiliated. How is Noah?" She blinked. "What? You have been here 10 minutes. You haven't asked how he is. Of course I care about him." "Then ask." Her mouth tightened. "How is he?" "He wakes up screaming when the wind hits his window. That will pass. He checks whether his bedroom door can open from the inside. He has always been sensitive." My hands curled against the countertop. "Dad locked him in a shed. Your father disciplined him too severely. I admit that. But calling the government was unnecessary. You watched. I trusted your father's judgment. And when the roof came apart, we didn't know that it happened. You didn't know because neither of you checked." Her face hardened. "Families deal with problems inside the family. That rule protected Dad. It did not protect Noah." She reached for my hand. "Your father raised you the same way, sweetheart, and look how well you turned out." There it was again, the family's favorite evidence. Me, my career, my composure, my ability to continue functioning no matter how badly I was hurt. To them, surviving was proof that nothing harmful had occurred. My mother left after I refused to cancel the complaint. She took the soup with her. 3 days later, I received an envelope from Bellwether County Family Court. My parents had filed an objection to terminating their guardianship. They claimed I was emotionally unstable after the helicopter crash. They described my return to work as uncertain and my home as recently established. They argued that Noah required the stability of their rural property, church community, and structured routine. Then they requested access to my counseling records. After the crash, I had developed nightmares and panic attacks. I attended trauma therapy because I wanted to recover properly, not merely pretend I was fine. Now my parents intended to use that decision against me. My attorney, Maya Patel, read the filing twice before speaking. "They aren't trying to prove you're dangerous," she said. "They're trying to create doubt." In guardianship cases, doubt can be enough to delay a decision. I was injured. I got treatment. I know. The crash was not my fault. I know that too. They locked Noah in a shed. And they will call it discipline. They'll bring neighbors, church members, and teachers who saw Noah doing well while he lived with them. They'll say the storm damage was unpredictable. I looked through the window of Maya's office. What do? We document everything. We cooperate with the investigation. And we prepare for them to turn every good decision you made into evidence against you. That night, I placed the legal documents on my dining table. Beside them, I set Noah's 2 muddy sneakers. I had collected them from the field and sealed them in a clear storage bag. 1 shoelace had torn away. Grass and mud covered the soles. The court papers contained polished language. The shoes contained the truth. My parents could describe their home as stable. They could describe themselves as respectable. They could call the shed a quiet place and the locked door a lesson. But those shoes had carried my child through a storm, while the people responsible for him remained inside drinking coffee. I sent Maya a message. We are not settling unless Noah is fully protected. The child protection investigation took nearly 2 weeks. A caseworker named Daniel Morris interviewed Noah at school with a child specialist. Noah drew the shed with black walls, rain covering the page, and a yellow square in the distance. "What is the yellow square?" the specialist asked. "Mrs. Alvarez's kitchen light." Daniel inspected my home, checked Noah's bedroom, reviewed his medical records, and spoke with his counselor. Then he visited my parents. My father did not deny anything. He proudly showed Daniel the shed and explained that isolation gave children time to reset their attitude. According to the report, Daniel asked, "Why did you secure the door?" "So the boy wouldn't leave before the lesson worked," my father replied. "Were you aware of the tornado watch?" "We get warnings all the time." "Did you check on him?" "He knew what he needed to do." My mother confirmed most of his account, though she insisted she had expected the punishment to last only a few minutes. The report eventually found substantiated neglect against my father and failure to intervene against my mother. The district attorney declined to pursue criminal charges. There was insufficient evidence, they said, to prove that my parents had knowingly intended to endanger Noah. The guardianship case continued. News spread through Red Hollow before the official report arrived. My aunt called me and accused me of trying to put my father in prison. 2 women from my mother's church stopped speaking when I entered the grocery store. Noah was suddenly removed from a classmate's birthday party because the parents wanted to avoid family drama. "Did I cause trouble?" he asked me. "No, but everyone is angry. Some adults become angry when a child tells the truth." Should I have stayed in the shed? I knelt beside him. "Listen to me. Leaving that shed was the right thing. Running toward Mrs. Alvarez's light was the right thing. Telling the nurse was the right thing. None of this is your fault." He nodded, but I saw that he did not completely believe me. Children absorb guilt adults refuse to carry. Mrs. Alvarez agreed to testify. "I taught elementary school for 34 years, she told Maya. "I know the difference between a rude child and a terrified one." Noah's counselor documented his nightmares, fear of locked doors, and sudden distress during strong wind. The court appointed an independent attorney, Samuel Ortiz, to represent Noah's interests. Samuel interviewed every adult involved and met Noah 3 times. He never revealed his recommendation. Meanwhile, my parents presented statements from their pastor, neighbors, and 2 former teachers. Each described them as reliable, generous, and devoted grandparents. None had been present during the storm. My father's attorney proposed mediation. We met inside a windowless room at the county courthouse. My parents sat across from me. My mother wore pearl earrings and held a tissue she never used. My father looked as comfortable as if he were attending a bank meeting. The mediator asked whether he understood why locking Noah in the shed had frightened him. My father leaned back. When I was 11, my father left me beside a broken tractor during an ice storm, he said. He told me to repair the fuel line or walk 5 miles home. My hands were bleeding before I got the engine started. For the first time, his voice trembled. I thought I would freeze, but I repaired it. That day taught me nobody was coming to rescue me. For one brief second, I saw him differently. Not as the powerful father who controlled every room, but as an 11-year-old boy beside a dead tractor, waiting for someone to care whether he survived. Then he straightened. That experience made me capable, he said. Children today expect rescue before they even try. I was teaching Noah that fear doesn't control him. You were becoming the person who abandoned you, I said. His chair scraped against the floor. My father made me a man, and you believe suffering is the only inheritance worth passing on. The mediation ended soon afterward. A week before the hearing, my parents offered a settlement. They would withdraw their objection. The guardianship would terminate immediately, and Noah would legally return to my sole care. In exchange, they wanted one unsupervised weekend visit every month and a confidentiality agreement prohibiting me from discussing the investigation or their parenting. Maya admitted the offer provided certainty. A trial always carries risk, she said. Their evidence about your therapy is weak, but they'll use it. This agreement gives you custody immediately and sends Noah back to their house. 1 weekend a month. Unsupervised. Yes. I read the confidentiality clause. It was my mother's rule converted into legal language. Families handle family matters privately. Silence, signed and enforceable. That evening, I sat beside Noah while he prepared for bed. He checked his closet, his window, and the space beneath the bed. Then he tested the bedroom doorknob twice. Mom? Yes? Can a judge make me sleep at Grandma's? I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen. If I have to go, can I take a screwdriver? Why? So I can remove the hinges if Grandpa locks me somewhere, he said it calmly. He was already planning how to survive the next time. That was when I knew I could not sign. No screwdriver, I told him. And no locked sheds, I promise. After he fell asleep, I sent Maya 4 words, reject it. We go forward. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. My parents sat with their attorney on one side. Mrs. Alvarez sat behind me. Samuel Ortiz occupied the front bench with his notebook closed across his lap. My father testified first. He admitted locking Noah in the shed but denied intending harm. He described the punishment as a familiar family method used to teach emotional control. Then his attorney asked about me. My father spoke proudly of my career. Claire has flown into places most people run from, he said. She stays calm when lives depend on her. That didn't happen by accident. I taught her that feelings don't solve problems. He pointed toward me. She is proof that firm discipline works. Maya whispered. You do not have to answer that. We can rely on the investigation report. But I could see the strategy clearly. My father was using my entire adult life as evidence that my childhood had been harmless. For years, I had done the same thing. I stood. I want to testify. When I took the witness chair, Maya began with ordinary questions about my work, my recovery, my home, and Noah's care. Then she looked directly at me. Your father testified that the discipline you experienced made you stronger. Is that true? No. My father shifted in his seat. Maya waited. I had told her only minutes earlier that there was something else the court needed to hear. Please explain. When I was 10, my mother's younger brother died in a motorcycle accident. Uncle Henry was the only adult in our family who hugged people without being embarrassed. At the funeral, I cried. The courtroom became completely silent. My father told me I was making a spectacle of myself. That night, after we returned home, I was still crying. He took me behind the barn to an underground grain cellar that had not been used in years. My mother covered her mouth. There was a wooden door in the ground and a ladder leading down. The cellar smelled like soil, rust, and spoiled corn. My father made me climb inside. Then he removed the ladder and closed the door. My father stared straight ahead. He told me he would open it when I learned to control myself. I screamed until my throat hurt. I begged my mother to help me because I knew she was somewhere nearby. No one came. The cellar had one small ventilation opening. Rainwater entered through it during the night. I stood on an overturned bucket to keep my shoes out of the water, but the bucket tipped and I struck my face against the wall. Maya's voice softened. "How long were you there?" "Until sunrise." Someone behind me gasped. When the door finally opened, my mother lowered the ladder. She gave me a towel and told me not to upset my father by talking about it. I looked at the judge. I made a promise inside that cellar. I promised I would never cry where another person could see me. I thought that if I never appeared frightened, nobody could use fear to control me again. I kept that promise when I broke my arm in high school. I kept it when Noah's father died. I kept it while treating strangers after crashes. I even kept it while trapped inside a damaged helicopter, waiting for rescuers to cut me out. People called me calm, professional, strong. But strength was not what my father gave me. He gave me terror and taught me how to hide it. My father suddenly stood. "That is a lie." The judge struck her gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Bennett." I made her successful. "Sit down." He lowered himself into the chair. I turned toward him. "You keep saying your punishment never hurt me. The truth is, it never stopped hurting me. I spent years becoming someone nobody needed to rescue because you taught me rescue would never come." My mother was crying silently. "You knew," I said to her. "You heard me that night." She looked down. "My therapy records do not show that I am an unfit mother," I continued. "They show that I finally became brave enough to admit surviving something is not the same as being unharmed." Maya entered my medical and counseling summaries into evidence with my permission. My father's attorney did not question me for long. There was little he could ask without making the situation worse. Mrs. Alvarez testified next. She described finding Noah barefoot and drenched, his hands trembling too badly to hold a cup. The caseworker presented photographs of the damaged shed, the secured door, and the broken roof panel. Then Samuel Ortiz gave his recommendation. He said Noah wanted to live with me and did not want unsupervised contact with my parents. The judge asked, "Did Noah explain what makes him feel safe in his mother's home?" Samuel opened his notebook. He said, "My mom locks the doors to keep danger outside. Grandpa locks doors to keep children inside." My father's face lost its color. The judge terminated the guardianship immediately. She restored my full parental rights and denied my parents' request for court-ordered visitation. She also ordered that any future contact occur only with my written consent and under professional supervision. The stamp on the order made a small, ordinary sound, but to me it sounded like a locked door finally opening. My mother approached me outside the courtroom. "I should have taken you out of that cellar," she whispered. "Yes, I was afraid of him. So was I. I loved you. I know you believed that." Her face crumpled. "Can you forgive me? Maybe someday. But forgiveness will not give you access to Noah." My father walked past without speaking. He has never apologized. Months later, my mother left a box outside my door. Inside were childhood photographs, my Uncle Henry's old watch, and the yellow dress I had worn to his funeral. There was no letter. I kept the watch and discarded the dress. Noah continued counseling. His nightmares gradually became less frequent. He stopped checking his bedroom door every night, though he still dislikes tool sheds. I accepted a position coordinating emergency medical services for 3 rural counties. It keeps me on the ground and brings me home before dinner. One Saturday, Noah and I cleaned the mud from his old sneakers. We did not save them as courtroom evidence or symbols of survival. We planted flowers in them and placed them beside our porch steps. Noah chose bright yellow marigolds because they reminded him of the light at Mrs. Alvarez's house. In the spring, a severe storm moved across the county. The sky darkened. Wind bent the trees, and the weather radio announced a tornado watch. Noah came onto the porch and sat beside me. "Should we go inside?" he asked. "When the warning comes, yes. For now, we can watch from here." Thunder rolled over the fields. He reached for my hand. "Were you scared in the cellar?" "Yes. Are you scared now?" "A little." He considered that. "But you're still strong?" "Yes." He smiled. "So you can be both." That simple sentence held more wisdom than everything my father had tried to teach 3 generations of children. You can be afraid and still be strong. You can need help and still be capable. You can be rescued without becoming weak. When the tornado warning sounded, Noah and I went to our reinforced safe room. We brought blankets, flashlights, water, the weather radio, and our dog. I shut the door, but I did not lock it. Noah noticed. He always notices doors. We listened as the storm passed several miles north of town. When the warning ended, he opened the door himself. Outside, the marigolds in his old sneakers were bent by the rain, but they were still standing. Noah knelt and carefully lifted one flower. "Do you think it will recover?" "I think so." "Because it's tough?" "Because we're going to take care of it." He nodded as if the distinction mattered. It did. My father believed suffering automatically created strength. What he never understood was that suffering only creates pain. Whatever strength comes afterward grows from the care, courage, and choices people build around that pain. My son should never have needed to run barefoot through a storm to learn where safety lived. But when he found that light, he unknowingly showed me where to go too. For most of my life, I believed being strong meant remaining silent. Now I know silence was simply the final lock on my father's cellar. And telling the truth was how I finally opened it.